Our next guest's no-nonsense approach and uncompromising guidelines has taught us all a thing or two about education reform.
There's no such thing as an achievement gap. It's not like these kids can't achieve. It's an access gap. For me, the belief is that if I can give more children access, I can create more freed children.
Steve Perry, founder of Capital Preparatory Magnet School in Hartford, Connecticut, knows all too well the disadvantages poor children face when it comes to receiving quality instruction. Born into poverty, Perry has made it his life goal to ensure that all students, regardless of race and class, have access to effective teachers and a college education. His methods appear to be working. Perry's Capital Prep has been recognized by U.S. News and World Report as one of America's best high schools. A CNN contributor and author of Push Has Come to Shove, Getting Our Kids the Education They Deserve, Perry is redefining our definition of academic success.
You have described yourself as being the third generation born into poverty. Can you give us a little bit of a sense of how that experience shaped you?
It's mostly in retrospect that I think about growing up, because I had a lot of fun growing up. When you live in public housing, the prerequisite for living there, in addition to being poor, is that you have to have children. So it was like Oz for kids. It's just kids everywhere. And because our parents were either working or doing something they weren't supposed to be doing, it was always someone to play something with. Poverty didn't really mean anything to me in that context. It didn't set in. And in fact, there was we wore poverty like it was a badge of honor. Like, yeah, we live in the projects. We'll beat you up. Say something. People didn't say anything. So it was pretty cool to be poor. Most of my aunts and uncles dropped out of high school. The last two graduated. My father dropped out, depending on his story. I don't know when actually the last day of school was for him, but I'm guessing around 14. Presuming that he was really even going before that. And my mother, she was pregnant by 15, and I was born on her 16th birthday.
It didn't sound like you had a lot of role models of folks who were going to college, and I wonder what allowed you, or what gave you the sense that you could do that?
I knew that the other stuff wasn't for me. A lot of my friends sold drugs. I wasn't morally against it. It just didn't seem like a cool thing to do, stand outside in the cold. I wasn't very interested in that. One of the things I felt like people felt that I couldn't do was school. I always felt that there were people who believed that it wasn't something that I could do in the representation of what I was. And I went through life thinking that I wasn't smart. I thought I was dumb. As a matter of fact, in elementary school, I stayed back. I was left back in the third grade because it was so much fun. I figured I'd do it twice. And I got in a lot of trouble growing up, all through elementary school and all the way through. But I didn't grow big enough to be a professional athlete, though I wanted to be. The other things that I saw in front of me were there. I didn't know what school was. I just knew that it seemed like a reasonable way out. And I remember my first week in college, Thursday of the first week, I thought, oh, shoot, I'm out of stuff. I used everything I learned in high school. I'm so done. But I didn't want to go back to the projects. And I didn't know what was on the other side, but it all seemed like it was better than what I had. I wish there was a lot of thought that went into it. It just seemed like the best route out.
Coming up next, Steve Perry gets personal.
You described struggling a little in school, and I wonder, is there a moment where somebody has faith in you, or you?
There were definitely people who had faith in me and believed in me and would tell me I was smart. And I always thought that they were hitting me with the gas. I always thought they were like trying to play me like, yeah, right, I'm smart. I remember one time an English teacher recommending me for a summer writing scholarship at Choate. Like, man, stop playing. I don't write. A lot of what I do and did was to show people, just to prove to people that they were stupid for ever doubting specifically me and then people like me. Kids who who just so happened to be born in a different womb than somebody else. And that womb lived in a different apartment than somebody else. And that apartment was in a different community. But that's it. That's all. There's no other distinguishing characteristics. They're both kids. I just wanted to prove that it could be done, and then drop the mic and walk away.
But you don't walk away and you don't drop the mic. In some ways, you keep going back on stage and pushing yourself. And so it's like, is there a moment where you decide, oh, I want to be an educator?
And I feel like a lot of people don't know they're slaves. And I feel that somehow, for some reason, among the many people that God has selected to do what I do, I'm one of them. I'm not the one, I'm one. And there are times where it would definitely be easier professionally to do something else. And for me, there's nothing else that seems more fun than being involved with kids. I don't really even like adults. Kids are so much cooler. Education is just the strategy, the most recent strategy that I've used to free our people. I run a homeless shelter. I worked at colleges. But all those didn't give me what I wanted. Working in some of the poorest communities in the country with children and giving them access to quality education, to me is that's the holy grail. I look up and I think there's no such thing as an achievement gap. It's not like these kids can't achieve, it's an access gap. So for me, the belief is that if I can give more children access, I can create more freed children. So many of our children in this country are growing up in the second and third world. There's an academic apartheid that is fully engulfing our entire academic system. It's a real deal. It is absolute apartheid. Well, if I and my team can create schools that are in the gutter and can give these kids access, those kids are gonna be unbeatable because they're just a tougher stock. I was in Asbury Park. It's an interesting town in New Jersey. But I was there and I was watching as these two kids who were about the same age as my sons were out playing by themselves, far away from any adults. And I was thinking, man, my sons don't even go to the bathroom without me there. They're usually within arm's length of me or my wife, right? And these kids are out here, just out. If somebody can grab hold of them and put them in a good school, the inherent toughness that they've had to develop, the capacity to survive, plus education, unbeatable. Absolutely unbeatable. A class of people that are gonna be the most powerful Americans that anyone's ever seen.
You start Capital Preparatory Magnet School to try and counter some of what you see.
I remember having a conversation in which I told someone that I was gonna open a school in Hartford, which at the time had a 29% graduation rate. That's not really a graduation. That's like, if that were a hospital, that'd just be a mortality rate, right?
Right.
So I remember telling them that I was gonna open a school that's gonna send every single graduate onto a four-year college. Dude laughed at me, like straight up laughed in my face.
Yeah.
This black dude looked at me and said, "You're out of your damn mind. There's no way those kids in that city are gonna do that." And I'm looking at him and I'm thinking, like, is there a hand up your back? Right. What are you talking about? You're one of those kids. Your kids look like those kids, stupid. And he was adamant. I thought, wow. And believe it or not, if you tell somebody something enough, they can believe it. But for some reason, I just felt like he was wrong. And at the very least, I felt like I could run a school at least as bad as the other schools. Like, I felt like I could suck like them too. But I could do a little more style, you know? So that was how I sold it. How I sold the idea of opening Capital Prep is, we ain't even be that good anyway. I'm not even joking. I sat down with legislators and everyone like, yeah, man, I don't know how we're gonna do this thing. We're probably not gonna send that many kids to college anyway. And that's what I did. And so what I had to do was to make myself so small. So I would get in these meetings with these men who were older than me, and who were like, I guess, the guy that I was supposed, bunch of ring kissing. I kept thinking, just humble yourself, just humble yourself. And I just kept doing it. I just said, just gotta humble yourself, because if you humble yourself, then it'll happen. And I just kept humbling myself and thinking, if I make myself so small that even our people won't find me as a threat, then they'll let me open a school.
And so was that hard as a guy who's used to being hard charging to shrink yourself down?
It felt at times impossible because my instincts were different.
Yeah.
Because I wanted to harm these people, like physically harm them, because I knew what they were doing. There were thousands of children who were being hurt every single day by their inertia, by their unwillingness to just let. You run the worst school system in the state with the greatest achievement gap in the country. And you're beefing with me about this stuff? Really? My kids are gonna go to a good school, I know that. And your kids are gonna go to a good school. But there are 25,000 children. That's a lot of kids, man, who didn't do anything to anybody but be born. And I believe in them. Like, I believe that we can win. So what it's done is now, there ain't nothing small about this. This mess is as hardy as possible. You damn right.
Steve Perry's vision for the future when we return.
How do you explain your success?
We love kids. We absolutely love kids. And anybody who doesn't, I fire them.
You wrote a book called Push Has Come to Shove. What's that about?
Because we have no more kids to lose. We've lost all the generations we can. It is as bad as anyone could imagine. If you set your mind, if you just thought to the worst possible situations that our children could be encountering, we're there. And we've been there. So there that now feels normal. We've actually come to accept there. We drive around these communities and say, yeah, that's what it should look like. When we started Capital Prep, I said that we would have children wear uniforms. Now, of course, now it's standard. But 10 years ago, those kids are never gonna wear uniforms. Those kids, right? It's always those kids like they're freaking aliens, right? Really what they are is animals in these other people's minds. Excuse me. So we started becoming successful. The visibility started to come on and on and on. So I get a call from another principal in town. And she says, hey, where'd you get those uniforms? And I paused because I thought, of all the things to ask me, really, of all the things to ask me about, we've had visitors from all over the country, all over the world. Romania, just this past year. No, I'm sorry, Armenia, last year. China, South Korea. I'm big in South Korea, recognize. And you're in Hartford, and of the 48 schools in Hartford, we've had 0 from Hartford visit us. And the first phone call I get is a wardrobe call? Are you serious? This is a costume call? So I said to her, well, I could tell you where we get the uniforms, but that's not gonna solve your problems. I said, Superman's power is not in his cape. You could dress like us, but you can't be like us until you are like us. She said, okay. But what's the name of the company again? I said, you know what? Here's the number. Give them a call. We believed in our kids. We absolutely believed in them. And as a result, they believe in themselves. If you'd ask any child, go all the way down to pre-K, if they're going to college, the answer is yes. I mean, they wouldn't even think about it. They look at you like you were stupid. Like, who is this guy? Who brought him here? Like, why is he asking stupid questions? And if I was with you, they'd look at me like, am I supposed to answer this question? Yeah, answer it. He doesn't know better. It's just sometimes when people say, I want to come in and talk to your kids about going to college. Really, my kids. You want to talk to my kids? How about this? Why don't you go to one of those elite prep schools and talk to them about going to college? Because see, here's the thing. We send a higher percentage of kids to college than they do. So they might need you to talk to them because you ain't beating 100%.
You're sort of doing your dream job, it seems like. And I wonder, what do you aspire to?
It just all has changed now. Now my principal's chair feels too small. You know, for a while I took offense when people say, oh man, you too big to be a principal, you're on TV. I'm like, what are you talking about? That's so stupid. Like, what does TV have to do? Like, what is who? No. It's not because of that. I feel like now, I don't feel like God wants me to be comfortable there anymore. I feel like he has shrunk my chair and it doesn't feel good to sit there anymore. I aspire to fulfill my calling. Thought I was there. I was ready to ride this thing out. I have a 7-year-old at the school, had a really simple plan. He would walk across the stage, I'd shake his hand, and that would be our last day. I'd turn it over to everybody else, say, you guys do it now. We've won our state championships. We've changed the way people look at our children. We're done. So I guess what I aspire to do and to be is to inspire others to fulfill their calling.
Never one to mince words, Steve Perry leaves no doubt as to why he thinks education is the key to saving our children and our future. Like Perry, through their untraditional methods of teaching, Khalil Gibran Muhammad and Elijah Day Williams are also passing down a legacy of enlightenment that will continue to uplift the community for generations to come. I'm Suzanne Malveaux. Join us again next week as we bring you more fascinating stories of achievement on the Route 100 on Aspire.